Hello, my name is Lucas. This is a Bit of Lit. I'm here to talk about Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. It's an excellent book, and I recommend that you read it. I read this over quite a long time, actually, because half of it is written in like a colloquial, kind of regional accent for all the characters. And I'm not really a fan of books when they do that. I don't feel like writing in accents really works. But in this case, there is a purpose to it other than to show, like, they're from this place. These characters are from here. So they're going to have this accent. And I can appreciate it. It's still not really my thing. My only major gripe with the book, but it is important to the structure of the book that it has this element to it, so I can forgive it. It is still an excellent novel. I read in the introduction by Edwidge Danticat, hopefully I said her name right, who is a Haitian author. I've read a book of hers and made a review on that, a collection of her short stories. Very good collection. That apparently Zora Neale Hurston went to Haiti to write part of it. And also, more importantly, what I learned was that the book was out of print for 30 years and was not always well loved. And by the time it came back into print, because Alice Walker, I believe it was, wrote an essay about finding Zora Neale Hurston, or something to that effect. Her popularity rose, and then people started wanting to buy this book, and she's been famed ever since, I guess. Famed, is that a verb? I don't know. However, unfortunately, Zora had passed away by then, and for the last years of her life, she was living quite poorly. So that's unfortunate that a woman with so much talent was not able to live comfortably. But that's just a little bit I learned from the introduction. Also, it talked about the themes about masculinity and femininity and marriage and black communities and differences, because the main character, Janie, is the product of two different white men taking advantage of her mother and her grandmother and committing heinous crimes to impregnate them. Her grandmother was a slave, and her mother was not a slave, but her school teacher or schoolmaster took advantage of her. Quite difficult to read through those parts, because it is quite horrifying. And then the rest of the book is about her marriages. It starts off, I should say, with Janie coming back to this town, and all the women are talking about her, and wondering what happened to her husband and what she's doing here and what she might have done to him or what he might have done to her. And they're all just talking, and Janie goes to a friend and tells her story. During this part, and not until much later in the story, I believe by the time Janie finally feels like she's become a woman in her third marriage to Tea Cake, we see the narrator narrating in a traditional sense, with standard English, I suppose, is what to call it. Once Janie is telling her story, we start to see these regional accents and colloquialisms and this kind of thing, and it's really giving a voice to these people, to these characters, and giving their voice, not the standard English voice, but what people would have really sounded like and what they would have been saying and talking about. And I admire that. Not my favorite thing to read. Makes it difficult, in my opinion. Even though, once you read through quite a few pages of it, you start to pick up what each word is actually supposed to be really easily, and you're able to read it quite quickly. Once it changes to Janie telling her story, we see that she marries 3 men. Now, the first man she marries is quite well off. He is Killix, I think. Who does she marry? I can't remember. Killix, and then Starks, and then Tea Cake. And the first man, he's got a really nice farm, he's well off, and her grandmother wants her to take this opportunity because in her mind, the best thing for you to do, because she was a slave and never really got an opportunity to create her own path, a sense of security would be the most important thing. There is even this bit during the book where Janie talks about her grandmother's wishes to be like the white women who sat on the porch, because they had a sense of place and comfort and all these kind of things. But her grandmother wouldn't know what to do next once she had attained that, which is a very powerful moment in its own right. Janie does marry this man, but she doesn't feel any love for him, and grandma is trying to tell her love will come later, or it's just not the most important thing. He is quite domineering. He feels that because they are married, she should be property, essentially. Not ever really being able to escape the I guess motif of slavery that we see from grandma and her life, and sort of what she suggests is the best path just for security's sake. Anyway, she marries another younger man, and Starks, that's right. This man is Jody. He's got this great plan to be part of an all-black town and build it up, and he's gonna make his own money, and they do become quite wealthy once they're married. Sort of a spur of the moment kind of marriage in a way, because she just leaves her first husband, and it is really interesting because he's got the nice house, and he's the one making a lot of money, and she's running this store because she's made to, because he's also quite domineering and expects to have a lot of control over her. And the houses, in a way, there's this line about how all the other people's houses are sort of like, I can't remember, the slave houses basically, and his house is like the master's house. Which again, it's just really affecting in a way, because this book doesn't have that many white characters. You do sort of feel the presence of white people, and certainly a lot of people notice that Janie has European features, as they say. She's got very light skin, and just her facial structure is similar to what you might find in a white person around this area in the book. This marriage falls apart because he is domineering, and finally, and he dies. Then she's about 40, and she meets Tea Cake, and she is She's quite wealthy now, and she's got a nice place and everything. She's got all these suitors who are upset that she picks tea cake. I personally think they would have been upset with anybody if it wasn't them, because she has so many suitors all of a sudden now that she's rich and Stark's Jody is gone. And she really starts to feel a lot more equal and like more like a woman, and she's able to challenge him. Before, she was quite submissive and oppressed and silent in many ways, and that's why I think the use of these colloquial expressions is very important, even though it does show earlier, before she starts to be more open and express her discontent with Tea Cake, her husband, who's like 10, 15 years younger than her at the time. And it all seems kind of okay, but he's kind of, again, abusive psychologically. Eventually he hits her. But he does listen to her when there are some issues. But he's very problematic when his need for control gets to him, and he acts domineering as well. Eventually, there's this terrible storm, and not Jody. Tea Cake tries to protect his wife from a dog, and in doing so, contracts rabies, and he starts deteriorating mentally and all this, and because he's deteriorating, eventually gets to a really tense moment where he's pulled a pistol on his wife, and he shoots, or tries to shoot, he misses, and she kills him in self-defense. And there's a court scene, which isn't very long. A whole bunch of black people are there opposing her. Black men, not black women as well, but black men are there, really opposing her because they liked Tea Cake, you know. But there are a bunch of white men in the jury and white women watching, and it takes all of 5 minutes for them, after hearing the case, all of 5 minutes for them to decide that she was innocent. And there is this really interesting conversation. Like, I stopped for a moment and thought to myself, why would it only take them 5 minutes? Let me think. Well, she's got light skin. She's got, because she's got some bad forefathers in her recent genetic history. So she looks white. Also, it was a black man she killed. So it's probably because, well, she's got light skin and she killed a black man, not a white man, so it doesn't matter. And then there's a discussion about that amongst the characters, that the reason that she's let off is because of what I just spoke about. That's about it. Then it comes back. After the third marriage, it does sort of, there's this interchange more frequently between the narrator and these, like Janie being the narrator in a sense, which I think is really interesting. I don't quite know what it means exactly. I'd have to maybe do more literary history and research for that, but I think that's quite interesting to note. Very good book. And there was another point I really wanted to make, and I started talking about the narrators and forgot the other point that I wanted to make. I don't know. I guess it won't come to me, and I'm stalling a little bit so that it will come to me. Oh gosh, it's gonna bother me so much. Yeah, that's about it. I'm just going to leave it there because I don't know. But it's a great book. I spoiled everything for you. Man, it's really bothering me. I can't remember what it was. I should just write a script like I have for a couple videos. And that's it. We're losing my mind. Who are you? What am I? What is life? Read this book. Thank you. Bye.